They call it Godzilla El Nino, and it is here. Southeast Asia is bracing for its full force.
Rumput laut kami yang seharusnya bisa dipanen, akhirnya jadi putih dan ini menjadikan kami rugi.
The climate phenomenon this time could be one of the most severe on record. It goes beyond extreme heat. It's changing lives.
If the El Nino come, business will not be as usual.
อุณหภูมิในตัวมันร้อนไปด้วยค่ะแล้วก็อึดอัดท้องอะไรด้วยค่ะ
If weather conditions is still going to worsen, that might also affect couples' wishes to decide to even have a family.
This is how El Nino will impact Southeast Asia in ways we may not expect. Off the coast of Bali lies Nusa Lembongan, one of the 5 islands that make up Bali province. Here, traditional seaweed farming is a key source of income in a region heavily dependent on tourism.
Dan tahun 2020 COVID melanda Bali, Lembongan juga terdampak oleh COVID-19. Masyarakat kami kehilangan mata pencaharian di sektor pariwisata. Kita mulai gelisah, tabungan sudah habis. Akhirnya 2020 sampai 2023 pertengahan masyarakat kami hampir 95% berbudidaya rumput laut lagi.
Seaweed has been called Indonesia's green gold, where 1 kilogram of raw dried seaweed can sell for $130.
Rumput laut sangat memiliki arti penting dalam kehidupan manusia gitu. Karena di samping dia jadi kosmetik, dia juga bisa dijadikan untuk kesehatan, bahan-bahan kesehatan, dan dia juga bisa jadi pupuk organik, jadi makanan ternak, bisa juga menjadi alternatif untuk meminimalkan sampah plastik, bioplastik.
After China, Indonesia is the world's second largest seaweed producer. In 2027, Indonesia is forecast to produce around 13 million tons of seaweed from an estimate of 12 million tons in 2026. Its key markets are the European Union, ASEAN countries, Japan, and the United States. Seaweed farming supports around 62,000 people across Indonesia's islands, including Nusa Lembongan. But lately, farmers here have noticed a troubling change.
Ini dampak yang kami rasakan dari panas seminggu sebelumnya, panas yang luar biasa kami rasakan pada bulan Juli ini. Rumput laut kami yang seharusnya bisa dipanen, akhirnya jadi putih dan ini menjadikan kami rugi karena dia tidak bisa dikembalikan menjadi bibit. Ini harus dijemur dan tentunya sudah banyak yang lepas dari talinya, justru lebih banyak lagi kerugian kita, hampir 10 juta.
Tidak pernah kita rasakan fenomena panas seperti seminggu yang lalu dengan hembusan angin yang kencang dari timur, karena memang angin timur itu sangat kami takutkan sebagai pembudidaya. Karena begitu angin timur datang, airnya surut, rumput laut kami pasti akan layu, besoknya dia akan ada bercak-bercak putih. Itu yang sering kita rasakan.
Wayan's ailing seaweed could be a sign of a weather phenomenon that's unfolding across Southeast Asia. El Nino. El Nino means little boy in Spanish and was first used by anchovy fishermen in Ecuador and Peru in the 19th century. It's a naturally recurring climate phenomenon, typically occurring every 3 to 7 years. Under normal conditions, strong trade winds blow across the Pacific Ocean, pushing warm surface water from South America towards Southeast Asia and Australia. That warm water fuels clouds and rain over our region. But during El Nino, those trade winds weaken. Warm water that usually piles up in the Western Pacific begins to drift back towards the center and east of the ocean. As the warm water moves away, so do the rain clouds. Southeast Asia and Australia often become hotter and drier. But this year's El Nino is no ordinary one. It's a super El Nino, dubbed Godzilla by some scientists.
Yang sekarang barangkali kita sedang menghadapi kondisi El Nino dengan background perubahan iklim dan juga background pemanasan global ya. Pada masa lalu kondisi El Nino tersebut terjadi dalam kondisi iklim yang lebih dingin.
Today, Professor Irma Yuli Hastin from Indonesia's National Research and Innovation Agency is giving a presentation on the weather phenomenon to her colleagues.
Jadi ketika super El Nino terjadi, maka wilayah di Samudra Pasifik itu menghangat dengan area yang sangat luas. Tapi juga wilayah seperti Malaysia, kemudian di daerah sini, di daerah Thailand, sebagian Thailand atau Vietnam juga terimplikasi terkena efek dari warna merah. Termasuk juga Filipina ya, di dalam hal ini juga mengalami warna merah yang menunjukkan kekurangan hujan terjadi begitu ya, atau daerah yang minim dari curah hujan. Sehingga wilayahnya yang demikian besar inilah sebenarnya yang tidak hanya intensitasnya ya yang tinggi, karena inti terpanas dari Pasifik yang memanas itu juga mencapai 3 derajat Celcius, tapi juga area yang meluas seperti inilah yang kemudian digolongkan sebagai super El Nino.
There have been 3 other super El Ninos on record. In 1982, in 1997, and 2015. But even compared to these, this year's El Nino may be different.
Oleh karena itu, super ini, yang 2026 ini, menjadi sesuatu yang bagi ilmuwan itu perlu untuk diteliti, dikaji bagaimana dampaknya. Karena kita juga mengalami bumi yang memanas 1,5 derajat Celcius. Itu tidak terjadi pada 2015 dan juga tidak terjadi pada 1997. Sehingga ada efek lain yaitu perubahan iklim yang turut serta akan memperparah dampak.
The 2015 to 2016 El Nino affected more than 60 million people worldwide, triggering drought, floods, crop failures, and deadly haze. It's estimated to have cost the global economy nearly $4 trillion, higher than the damage caused by the 1997 to 1998 El Nino at $2.1 trillion. If this year brings a super El Nino, the costs could be just as severe.
I think the effect definitely will be in the trillions of dollars. Some say it will be 3 trillion, but I think all these are all estimates because sometimes these losses could be first order impact, that means the more direct impact, but actually some of these may go into other layers as well in terms of second order, third order, and multiple order. And then there's also a multiplier and interactive effect. So some of these, a few trillion is only, I would say, an underestimate.
And as the seaweed farms in Nusa Lembongan falter, the second-order effects may be felt by manufacturers who rely on their produce.
Saat ini kita lagi ada di tempat pengeringan rumput laut dan sejatinya ini cuaca yang seperti ini yang kita harapkan. Tetapi di satu momen dia tiba-tiba bisa redup, bisa-bisa panasnya tambah tinggi sekali. Nah, ini berpengaruh sekali di samping juga untuk pengeringan rumput laut sebagai bahan baku produk kami.
Based in Nusa Lembongan, Alga Nusa Sejahtera was founded by Nyoman in 2023. The company produces everything from facial cleansers and moisturizers to soaps, with seaweed as its main ingredient.
Di tempat kami juga sangat berpengaruh, yang mana notabene biasanya kami start AC itu mulai di jam kantor, jam 8 itu sampai sore dengan suhu rata-rata 25-24. Saat ini suhu tersebut tidak mempan akibat kenaikan suhu yang ada di saat ini di tempat kami. Jadi minimum suhu yang kami set di aircon kami itu paling tidak 21 derajat baru terasa, karena suhu ruang di tempat pengolahan kami itu tidak boleh terlalu panas karena bisa akan mempengaruhi tekstur dari produk yang kami buat.
The compounds found in seaweed are valued for their moisturizing, thickening, and antioxidant properties.
Jadi ini jenis rumput laut yang baik, talusnya cukup besar, dan di tempat saya rumput laut ini bisa diolah menjadi beberapa produk selain makanan, juga ada produk kesehatan rumah tangga dan juga ke kosmetik dan skincare.
Seaweed is only one part of Indonesia's commodity landscape. As of July 2026, Indonesia's Agricultural Ministry says that over 30,000 hectares of rice fields have been hit by drought. Palm oil output could fall by 2 million metric tons in 2026 due to dry weather and high fertilizer costs.
Itu semua kan berawal dari berkurangnya hujannya. Jadi kita mengalami defisit hujan, hujannya retreat, kondisi kering lebih panjang, dari mayoritas sawah-sawah kita yang masih tak ada hujan tentunya akan terdampak gitu. Begitu pula wilayah perkebunan berdampak pada yieldnya atau produktivitas dari tanaman sawitnya.
We may just be at the start of the new El Nino. It could strengthen in the next few months. The US Climate Prediction Center says there's a 95% chance of a very strong El Nino between October and December. But El Nino's reach extends far beyond the agricultural sector. Its full impact is yet to unfold. When El Nino hits, the first images are usually dry fields, parched land, failed harvests. But another crisis could be unfolding. Vietnam depends on rivers to generate nearly a third of its electricity. When reservoir levels fall, power generation falls with them. And that's when the real pressure begins.
Đối với mức nước hồ ấy, khi mà mực nước giảm xuống dưới mực nước chết ấy, thì cái việc mà bắt buộc phải chạy máy thì nó sẽ gây ra thiệt hại. Thứ nhất là cái tổ máy nó rung lắc, các cái ổ đỡ, ổ hướng là nó rung rất là lớn, và nhiệt độ cũng như là lúc đấy cái suất tiêu hao nó sẽ không hiệu quả. Nước phải chảy qua tuabin là rất là nhiều, trong đó công suất chúng ta phát lại là nó không được nhiều, thì sẽ ảnh hưởng rất là lớn đến công tác cung cấp điện, và đối với thủy điện Thác Bà thì cũng sẽ không phát được nhiều sản lượng, ảnh hưởng đến sản xuất kinh doanh như là công tác điều tiết.
The Thác Bà hydropower plant has been in operation since 1971. It generates an average of 372 million kilowatt hours of electricity each year. The plant provides power to the surrounding northern provinces of Hà Giang, Tuyên Quang, Lao Cai, and Phu Thóc.
Đối với mức nước hồ Thác Bà hiện nay thì so với năm 2025 thì là thấp hơn. Năm 2025 thì mực nước hồ là khoảng 56 mét, nhưng mà hiện nay thì là thấp hơn khoảng 2 mét. Đối với mức nước thấp như vậy thì đương nhiên là ảnh hưởng đến sản xuất kinh doanh.
About 30% of Vietnam's electricity depends on hydropower. For Southeast Asia, the number is between 15 and 20%. A major El Nino could leave reservoirs running dry as it brings drought conditions.
Thứ nhất là khi mà cái suy kiệt dòng chảy thì cái công suất phát điện nó sẽ giảm. Đấy là cái chắc chắn. Và trong những cái trường hợp mà suy giảm quá, ví dụ như năm 2015, 2016 thì cái việc mà cái nguồn nước mà suy giảm ở trên các hệ thống sông của chúng ta là thậm chí đến 60%. Và trong những cái có nhiều trường hợp mà nó còn thậm chí là cái lưu lượng dòng chảy cũng như cái mực nước nó còn thấp hơn cả cái mực nước chết, trong chuyên môn người ta gọi là mực nước chết, và trong trường hợp đấy thì các cái nhà máy điện thậm chí phải ngừng hoạt động.
Dead storage is the point where the water level is so low that it can no longer flow out of a reservoir through the dam's normal outlets. Without water reaching the turbines, electricity can no longer be generated.
So if there's lack of power, manufacturing will be affected in terms of the reduction of power, but more importantly, the rise of the price of energy, which will feed into the production cost, and therefore the price of manufacturing goods will be actually increased.
El Nino could make everyday life more expensive by increasing the cost of energy and food. Across Southeast Asia, countries are becoming increasingly connected through the ASEAN power grid. The vision is simple. Countries with surplus electricity can supply those facing shortages. A major part of the network is Laos.
I think if you look at these mega sources, in most importantly, let's say Laos is sometimes considered like the hydroelectricity battery of Southeast Asia. And if that, it has their production generation reduced, definitely it will have pressure on the amount of energy that can be fed into the ASEAN power grid, which is actually sometimes fed by renewable energy.
Hydropower isn't the only renewable energy source exposed to El Nino. The same weather pattern can also weaken the monsoon winds that drive wind farms across the region. Less water, less wind. Together, they could tighten electricity supplies even further. For Vietnam's manufacturers, reliable electricity is as critical as raw materials and labor.
Trong trường hợp mà thiếu hụt cái nguồn cung, nó sẽ tác động đến, thứ nhất là có thể sẽ phải giảm tải công suất sản xuất, và đồng thời cũng có thể là sẽ bị tác động đến cái môi trường làm việc của người lao động, và chính vì vậy thì có thể nó sẽ làm thay đổi mất cái kế hoạch sản xuất và ảnh hưởng đến cái tiến độ giao hàng của doanh nghiệp.
Garment 10 has been part of Vietnam's textile industry for 80 years. Tracing its roots to military garment workshops established in 1946, it has grown into one of the country's largest textile and apparel enterprises. Today, around 90% of its orders are for export. For a manufacturer of this scale, a reliable electricity supply is critical.
Khi mà có hạn hán xảy ra hoặc là thiếu nước của các cái hồ đập thủy điện sẽ ảnh hưởng rất là lớn đến cái lượng sản lượng điện mà cung ứng từ cái nguồn thủy điện. Ngoài cái việc mà đảm bảo ổn định năng lượng cho các cái thiết bị máy móc thiết bị hoạt động thì cũng phải đảm bảo cái nguồn cung năng lượng cho các cái hệ thống điều hòa, hệ thống thông gió để đảm bảo cái điều kiện môi trường cho người lao động.
Vietnam's neighbor Thailand is the world's second largest rice and sugar exporter. It's July and rains have come to Thailand. For now, there's enough water for farmers to plant. For more than 30 years, Chuan Jun Ta has worked on his 1.6-hectare rice farm, largely on his own. Every harvest depends on the water he can pump from his own reservoir. Experience tells him when it's time to plant.
ต้นพฤษภาเขาเริ่มทำกันแล้วไม่งั้นโยทำล้าไปมันไม่ทันน้ำหน้าเนี่ยไม่ทันน้ำพอตอนนี้พอตอนนี้ข้าวระยะจะได้2 เดือนเลยนะ
Chuan and his family live in Suphanburi, about 100 kilometers northwest of Bangkok. Thailand's National Water Resources Office has warned of extended dry spells in the later months of 2026 if El Nino becomes stronger.
ช่วงนี้มันก็ไม่เป็นห่วงแล้วเพราะว่าข้าวเราจะเกี่ยวแล้วก็ไม่ได้ทำแล้วก็ไม่ได้ทำอะไรไม่ได้ทำนาไม่ได้ทำอะไรอยู่เฉยๆก็มีปลูกผักเล็กๆน้อยๆนี่แหละ
ผมคิดว่าภาคเกษตรเนี่ยจะเป็นภาคที่ได้รับผลกระทบมากที่สุดครับเพราะว่าถ้าน้ำในเขื่อนหรือในอ่างเก็บน้ำมีปริมาณน้อยสิ่งที่จะตามมาในอนาคตไม่ใช่จะเกิดขึ้นเฉพาะแค่ปีนี้นะครับมันจะเกิดขึ้นไปถึงปีหน้าด้วยตั้งแต่ภาคเกษตรเลยถ้าเดิมเนี่ยเราปลูกข้าวเราปลูกอ้อยเราทำการเกษตรทิ้งไว้แล้วปรากฏว่าอยู่ดีๆไม่มีน้ำมาเติมนะครับต้นทุนน้ำของประเทศน่าตกใจมากเลยครับว่าตอนนี้ถึงแม้ว่าน้ำในอ่างเนี่ยจะอยู่ที่ประมาณ 50% ก็ถือว่ายังน้อยอยู่ แต่พอมาดูน้ำที่สามารถใช้ได้นะครับตอนนี้อยู่แค่ประมาณ20กว่า%เองนะครับ20กว่า%เพราะว่า 50% เนี่ยท่านต้องอย่าลืมว่าเราต้องใช้น้ำส่วนหนึ่งเนี่ยในการเก็บรักษาเรื่องของความมั่นคงของตัวเขื่อนเองด้วยนะครับ
Thai authorities have issued their highest environmental alert, warning that a powerful El Nino could bring temperatures above 45 degrees and one of the worst droughts in the country's history. As a region, Southeast Asia is the global agricultural powerhouse, producing large quantities of rice, coffee, natural rubber, and sugar.
When there's dry weather, the supply of some of these crops will be reduced because it really will decrease the crop yield of many of these commodities. And therefore, because there's a shortage of supply, it will increase the prices from the consumer perspective.
All these illustrates El Nino's impact on our wallets. HSBC says food inflation has already climbed to around 5% or more in Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. At the same time, hotter weather is expected to drive up electricity demand.
ไม่ว่าจะเป็นอุตสาหกรรมเรื่องการใช้น้ำหล่อเย็นการผลิตกระแสไฟฟ้านะฮะซึ่งมันก่อเนื่องเป็นทอดๆไปหมดเลยซึ่งสุดท้ายผลกระทบก็จะบวกกลับมาอยู่สู่ที่ประชาชนนะครับ
I think what you're seeing is perhaps cascading effect. First is the weather and climate, then it will affect the economy. And when there's pressure on the economy, people, human beings will be threatened in terms of their livelihood, their jobs, and more importantly, I think this is something more fundamental, their well-being and their health.
Every day, Cherry Lim juggles two important roles, preschool principal and mother. Both are becoming harder as the weather grows hotter. The heat is changing the school budget.
So the children are very smart. Whenever they feel hot, they will ask us to, teacher, can you please switch on the aircon please? It's very hot and we are sweating. So we are running the air conditioner for longer hours every day and it really adds up the electricity bill. But as a parent and also as a principal, the children comfort, the children health come first.
Compared to earlier this year, electricity bills have jumped by as much as 50%. The financial pressure doesn't end when she leaves the preschool. At the supermarket, food has already become more expensive. Cherry is bracing for the worst in the months ahead.
I'm concerned about the prices of the vegetables, fruits, and the food items that could rise if a strong El Nino leads to poor harvest. There's something I worry about. Groceries now are very, very expensive. And if the food prices continue to rise, it will put more pressure on our monthly school budget and also the family budget. We want our children to eat healthy meals with fresh fruits and vegetables, so we may have to cut back on other expenses instead.
What begins with the weather doesn't stay there. From harvests to household budgets, the effects keep spreading, and some travel in unexpected directions. Bangkok, Thailand's capital, keeps drawing tourists. The heat is rewriting the experience.
It's too hot and we are not able to complete everything on time. So 7-Eleven is the go-to for survival.
I went to the Chatuchak, the weekend market, and I think it's too hot outside, so I choose a cafe and I stay there about 2 hours.
Live in Hungary, we experienced that too. And basically you just can't see people like out on the streets during the main hours, or you see everyone struggling.
More than 20 million people visit Bangkok every year. A new Oxford University study warns Southeast Asia's biggest cities are on the front line of extreme heat. Bangkok and Ho Chi Minh rank among the world's highest heat risk cities. driven by rapid urban growth, dense populations and limited access to cooling.
Bisa mempengaruhi destinasi pilihan destinasi dari para wisatawan, terutama yang mancanegara. Dulu kan masih hanya ada di benua-benua Asia terkena, tapi kan lebih ke utara gitu, paling berhentinya di Cina gitu ya. Tapi sekarang tuh sudah ke Thailand, Vietnam gitu. Karena kan masih berada di daratan yang sama, sampai semenanjung Malaysia itu.
For years, tour operators planned around the dry or monsoon seasons. Now they're planning around extreme heat.
ก็ถ้าอย่างบริษัทจอยค่ะจอยจะมองหลักๆว่ากลุ่มนักท่องเที่ยวของเราจะมี2รูปแบบก็คือในแบบของ leisure แล้วก็ในแบบของ MICE ที่เป็นแบบ corporate event ประมาณนั้นนะครับคือถ้าเกิดว่าเขามาเป็น leisure ส่วนมากเขาก็จะไปตามที่เกาะต่างๆอันนี้คิดว่าเอลนิโญก็จะมีส่วนเพราะว่าถ้าหากอากาศร้อนเกินเขาก็อาจจะไม่อยากออกเกาะหรือตัวเอลนิโญจริงๆก็มีส่วนทำให้ปะการังฟอกขาวหรือสัตว์น้ำบางตัวมันอาจจะไม่ได้มาใน area เดิมๆเพราะฉะนั้นพวกนี้มันน่าจะส่งผลต่อ experience ของเขาอาจจะยังไม่เลือกเราณช่วงเวลานั้นที่เขาจะมาหากว่ามีเอลนิโญเกิดขึ้น
Dry weather on a prolonged basis will have a very significant impact on tourism and some of the offering and also tourism behavior. For example, in the whole of Southeast Asia, there are many resorts that depend on sun, sand, and sea, but the problem is that we get too much of the sun now. So much so that it could be 40 over degrees, even reaching 50 degrees Celsius. And therefore, many of these tourism spots will have to modify what they can offer.
Tourism is especially vulnerable to extreme weather. The 1997 to 1998 El Nino sparked widespread forest fires, blanketing Southeast Asia with choking haze and bringing tourism to a near standstill. The 2015 to 2016 Super El Nino also scorched forests, blanketed Southeast Asia in haze and disrupted travels across the region. This August, parts of Indonesia's Mount Bromo National Park were closed after a wildfire broke out. Officials said unusually dry conditions fueled the spread of the blaze in the national park. Now, the tourism industry is bracing for more such disruptions.
ในมุมผู้ประกอบการสิ่งที่คิดว่าน่าจะสามารถทำให้คนมั่นใจที่จะยังมาประเทศไทยได้ค่ะก็อาจจะต้องเป็นการสื่อสารเชิงรุกไม่ว่าจะเป็นจากทั้งทางรัฐบาลกรมการท่องเที่ยวหรือแม้แต่ตัวบริษัทเองค่ะว่าประเทศเราในจุดท่องเที่ยวต่างๆที่เป็นจุดสำคัญนะคะเรามีความพร้อมในการรับมือกับปรากฏการณ์เอลนิโญเหล่านี้มากน้อยเพียงใดค่ะว่าค่าไฟมันสูงค่าไฟสูงขึ้นจริงๆอันนี้คิดว่ามันจะไปกระทบต่อ operation cost ของโรงแรมร้านอาหารซึ่งตอนจบมันจะสะท้อนออกมาในราคาที่สูงขึ้นซึ่งมันก็จะทำให้นักท่องเที่ยวอาจจะเลือกไปประเทศเพื่อนบ้านอื่นๆที่มีราคาที่ดีกว่าเราได้ค่ะ
But the effects of extreme heat extend far beyond the tourism industry into something much more fundamental. Thammonwan Rakpuak is 6 months into her pregnancy. It's her first child. Keeping cool becomes a daily struggle.
จะเป็นช่วงกลางวันค่ะเพราะว่าอากาศร้อนแล้วในห้องมันไม่ได้ติดแอร์แล้วก็จะเป็นช่วงกลางคืนค่ะอากาศมันร้อนแล้วทำให้ร่างกายมันแปรปรวน
Thammonwan is 24 years old and a full-time housewife. Her husband works for a Japanese company. Although medical checkups show her pregnancy developing normally, every heat wave brings fresh anxiety. To reduce the risks, she limits her time outdoors.
ก็ออกไปซื้อกับข้าวไว้ติดตู้เย็นค่ะแล้วก็จะดื่มน้ำจะอาบน้ำจะเปิดพัดลมให้ตัวเองรู้สึกว่าไม่ร้อนเกินไปค่ะเพื่อเตรียมตัวพออากาศร้อนขึ้นนะคะก็ไม่เหมือนเดิมเลยค่ะการใช้ชีวิตการออกไปข้างนอกก็ต้องแบบเซฟตัวเองเพื่อไม่ให้ส่งผลกระทบต่อลูกค่ะ
Rising temperatures are increasingly being linked to reproductive health, from conception to pregnancy.
In times where our temperature will at its highest, throughout the year, we can notice that this sort of adversely affect the sperm count and quality of the sperm. Even though you assume that you're heat acclimatized and in a high heat environment, we know that still has impact on sperm production. High heat actually impacts on the woman's stress levels because she gets very dehydrated, she's stressed, she's working out in the fields in certain parts of the regions when they're doing more agricultural work. This will put an unnecessary impact on her body, and that may indirectly affect things like her menstrual cycle regularity, whether she produces an egg every month, whether she ovulates or not. And this might have some indirect impact on human reproduction as well.
High temperatures during pregnancy have also been associated with the risk of complications.
That might also be another factor that may impact on couples' wishes, to decide to even have a family, and may even cause some problems with even trying to conceive at the same time.
Thailand is already having fewer babies than ever before. The birth rate is at a record low. Birth rates are also falling across Southeast Asia for reasons such as rising cost of living and delayed marriages. Worsening heat could add more downward pressure. By 2050, Southeast Asia is projected to be around 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius warmer than today. But the more immediate concern is the intense heat that a strong El Nino could bring over the coming months.
There are a few practical advice for the pregnant mother in order for them to stay safe in this hot weather. Number one, of course, most important, keep well hydrated. This is number one. Number two, limit outdoor activity. If they can avoid outdoor activity at all, that would be the best one. Number three, dress appropriately. Must have light-weighted, light-colored clothes. Number four, stay in cold environment. Stay in a room with good ventilation, with aircon, with fan. Number five, always check the weather forecast before they will go outdoor, they go any activity, so that they can well prepare. Number six, if need any help, please contact their respective doctor for further information.
For the rest of us, another health concern is the air we breathe. Preschool principal and mother Cherry Lim fears the haze may return to Malaysia due to hotter, drier conditions conducive to forest fires.
What worries me the most is the breathing. They are breathing in an unhealthy air. And if the haze is very bad, I prefer them to keep them indoors, which means they have to miss out all the outdoor play and exercise. And it is quite sad to have them stay inside all the time during their school hours.
Malaysian authorities warn that some areas could see temperatures climb to around 40 degrees Celsius. Children and the elderly are especially vulnerable to heat. Under the Education Ministry's guidelines, schools are allowed to close if temperatures hit 37 degrees.
I have noticed a lot of health problems in the children during the periods of severe haze and this very hot weather. Sometimes I can hear the children, they cough more and they get runny noses and also have very difficulty in sleeping.
Just how strong will the 2026 El Nino be? And what's being done about it? Weather can be unpredictable. That El Nino will hit us is almost certain. How strong it will be is less clear. Current models from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration give a 69% chance that it could be the most severe on record. So, across Southeast Asia, every forecast now matters.
Jadi El Nino itu tidak pernah sama persis kejadiannya, berikut juga dampaknya tidak pernah sama persis gitu. Jadi kita melihat tendensi atau kecenderungan laut ini semakin memanas dan semakin cepat menuju El Nino-like condition. Walaupun kondisi laut di Pasifik tersebut juga lebih cepat memanas, laut di kita juga memanas, sehingga background condition untuk El Nino tahun 2026 ini sebenarnya berbeda dengan El Nino yang lalu. Dari sekarang hingga September ya kita akan menghadapi periode-periode yang sangat kering ini justru. di bulan Agustus dan September adalah periode-periode paling menantang untuk menghadapi kondisi kekeringan ini. Sebenarnya skenario terburuknya adalah kita mengalami kekeringan ini gitu. Kita belajar dari kejadian-kejadian El Nino masa lalu ya, tahun 97, tahun 2015, tahun 2023 misalkan, kita cukup familiar mengenai dampaknya, cukup masif ya, ada terjadi kebakaran hutan, kekeringan di mana-mana, masyarakat khususnya yang di selatan Khatulistiwa itu kekurangan sumber air bersih ya, dan jadi dampak-dampak tersebut adalah sebenarnya kita pernah alami gitu.
The warning has already been issued. Now comes the harder part. Turning that warning into action before the worst arrives.
Artinya kan begini, karena ilmuwan sudah menjalankan tugas yang mendiseminasikan sejak awal tahun bahwa tahun ini 2026 kita harus bersiap-siap, ada anomali iklim yang tidak biasa, El Nino yang tidak biasa begitu ya. Mestinya ini kan harus diikuti gitu ya, karena ini bagian dari early warning atau kesiagaan dini. Nah itu kan harus diikuti dengan aksi yang dini juga, respon yang dini begitu ya. Bahkan kan 2 tahun setelahnya juga kita harus persiapkan. Nggak ada imbas gitu, nggak ada efek domino setelah tahun ini berakhir. Apalagi kalau kita nggak tahu tahun depan masih El Nino apa enggak gitu ya. Prediksinya bahkan masih gitu. Bahkan super aja sampai Desember kan masih di atas 2 misalnya gitu ya.
As Southeast Asia braces for El Nino, governments are stepping up preparations. Some are working to secure water supplies by maintaining dam and reservoir levels. Others are distributing water pumps, improving irrigation, and encouraging farmers to switch to more drought-tolerant crops. Many have also stepped up wildfire prevention and firefighting efforts as dry conditions increase the risk of fires.
I think if the El Nino come, business will not be as usual. Life will not be as usual as well. If the haze come from forests from, say, Indonesia or even Malaysia, many of the surrounding countries will be affected. And therefore, I think governments need to have some mechanism to coordinate. And it's good that ASEAN already have some haze control mechanism, that there was an agreement sometime back in 2002 that look at transboundary haze pollution. If the next big one come, we should be somewhat prepared, but of course we cannot be complacent. It is going to be another emergency.
เพราะฉะนั้นที่ผมมองว่าเราควรต้องให้ความสำคัญกับมันตอนนี้เราต้องทำเราเรียกว่าฉากทัศน์ต่างๆนะครับยกตัวอย่างเช่นถ้าในกรณีที่ฝนในช่วง2 เดือนข้างหน้าเนี่ยสิงหากันยานะฮะรวมถึงต้นกรกฎาคมที่เราจะเริ่มเปลี่ยนเข้ามาสู่หน้าหนาวแล้วเนี่ยเกิดไม่ตกหรือว่าตกแต่ไม่ตกเหนือเขื่อนดันไปตกท้ายเขื่อนเราก็ไม่สามารถที่จะเก็บกักน้ำไว้ได้เราจะทำอย่างไรกับฉากทัศน์นี้นะครับยกตัวอย่างเช่นทำยังไงเราถึงจะมีการทำการแบ่งปันน้ำเพื่อที่จะให้กับกลุ่มเปราะบางซึ่งก็จะเป็นกลุ่มประชาชนที่อยู่ในเมืองกลุ่มของผู้ป่วยอยู่ในโรงพยาบาลซึ่งกลุ่มนี้เป็นกลุ่มเปราะบางที่คุณต้องได้รับการจัดสรรทรัพยากรน้ำก่อนนะครับถัดมาเราก็ต้องมานั่งนึกถึงว่าจะเป็นกลุ่มถัดไปอย่างเช่นกลุ่มของเกษตรกรที่ต้องใช้น้ำในการเพาะปลูกจะได้รับการจัดสรรน้ำอย่างไรนะครับกลุ่มของอุตสาหกรรมที่ต้องทำการผลิตจะได้รับการจัดสรรน้ำอย่างไรกลุ่มท่องเที่ยวจะได้รับการจัดสรรน้ำอย่างไรนะครับอันนี้ผมคิดว่าประเทศไทยควรต้องทำฉากทัศน์ต่างๆเพื่อให้เกิดการเตรียมพร้อมรับมือไว้ก่อน
The last Super El Nino struck in 2015. If another develops this year, it will hit a Southeast Asia that has changed. Demand for both electricity and water is higher than it was a decade ago. Electricity demand has been growing by around 3 to 5% a year, driven by population growth, urbanization, and industrial expansion. Water demand has also continued to rise as cities grow and industries consume more resources. One example is the region's booming data center industry. Southeast Asia has become one of the world's fastest growing hubs for data centers, facilities that require large amounts of electricity, and in many cases, water for cooling.
ในกรณีที่ Data Center เข้ามาใช้เนี่ยเราต้องพิจารณาว่าการใช้น้ำของเขาจะเอาแหล่งน้ำจากที่ไหนมาสนับสนุนนะครับไม่ไปเบียดบังจากสิ่งที่ประชาชนหรือว่าเกษตรซึ่งเป็นประชากรหลักที่เขาได้ควรจะมีต้นทุนที่รัฐจัดสรรให้เขาอยู่แล้วนะครับในขณะที่ Data Center เนี่ยควรจะต้องทำการประเมินการใช้น้ำนะครับผมคิดว่าต้องนำการขออนุญาตการตั้ง Data Center เนี่ยเข้ามาเป็นหนึ่งในกระบวนการที่ต้องทำ EIA นะครับการวิเคราะห์ผลกระทบสิ่งแวดล้อม
El Nino doesn't affect everyone equally. The poorest households are often hit hardest.
They rely on agriculture, they rely on subsistence, they are not urbanites that can hide in air-conditioned residences. So it's actually a double whammy. They are affected by the weather, they are affected in terms of the economic livelihood. And therefore, I think going forward, any mechanism that try to address the El Nino problem will have to also balance the needs between the have and the have not. So we are actually moving away from an economic problem into one that is an equity problem.
Khi mà có dự báo hiện tượng El Nino xảy ra thì chúng tôi được biết rằng là các bộ cũng sẽ làm việc. Ví dụ Bộ Nông nghiệp, thường là cái việc đổ ải này là sẽ chủ trì là Bộ Nông nghiệp. Họ sẽ có những cái văn bản chỉ đạo cụ thể. Chẳng hạn như những năm trước là thay vì là bình thường là đổ ải vào 3 đợt, mỗi đợt diễn ra khoảng từ 5 đến 7 ngày. Thì những cái năm trước là chỉ đổ ải 2 đợt, giảm số ngày đi. Đồng thời là cũng là tối ưu hóa các nguồn nước.
Chúng tôi cũng đã được nghe những cái thông tin, bởi vì là trong quá trình hoạt động thì đối với doanh nghiệp thì luôn luôn có nhận được những cái thông tin, cái sự kết nối từ các cái đơn vị cung ứng của ngành điện, thậm chí đã có những cái buổi hội thảo về cái việc xây dựng cái chương trình kế hoạch ứng phó trong trường hợp mà có những cái thiếu hụt vào các nguồn cung trong những điều kiện và thời tiết cực đoan xảy ra. Thì chúng tôi cũng đã chủ động dự đoán tình hình trong những thời điểm vào mùa nắng nóng, xây dựng các cái kế hoạch sản xuất phù hợp. Và điều thứ hai nữa là chúng tôi cũng chủ động trong cái việc khai thác cái nguồn năng lượng mà chúng tôi cũng đang nguồn năng lượng ngoài cái năng lượng từ lưới điện mà chúng tôi đang có để mà nhằm giảm bớt những cái áp lực khi mà thiếu, đồng thời
For some communities, survival means changing old habits. For seaweed farmer Wayan, he's changing the way he farms.
Tantangan terbesarnya tentunya karena untuk meminimalkan dampak El Nino ini harus ada strategi yang kita lakukan. Salah satunya adalah relokasi lokasi atau rotasi lokasi, membawa rumput laut, kita mencari areal baru ke daerah barat yang notabene airnya ada di 50 cm sampai dengan 1 meter. Yang paling kami khawatirkan kemungkinan kami agak tertunda untuk berbudidaya rumput laut dalam skala besar. Karena untuk memulai di lokasi baru itu butuh biaya yang luar biasa, butuh tenaga yang luar biasa, dan perlu kehati-hatian juga karena ada hama ikan, ada ombak yang lebih keras gitu. Itu yang tentunya kita khawatirkan.
The next few months will reveal how strong and how enduring the coming El Nino will be. For Wayan and other farmers like him all across Southeast Asia, it's a question of outlasting the weather.
Kita sedang gagal panen bulan Juli ini. Tetapi gagal panen itu juga menjadi penguat kita untuk memulai kembali memilih-milih bibit yang memungkinkan gitu bisa kita gini lagi, walaupun udah terasa kerugian yang luar biasa dalam kita berbudidaya ini. Nah pada saat itu minimal kami bisa makan, kami bisa memenuhi kebutuhan yang lainnya, dan tentunya saya juga mengucapkan syukur pada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa telah memberikan berkahnya berupa budidaya rumput laut yang tumbuh baik dan mudah-mudahan tidak hanya di musim-musim paceklik.